I'm Molly Johnson, and I met Winnie about 25 years ago at the Nazarene Church. And we were both involved in quite a number of different women's ministries activities, and that's how it started.
I'm Hope Bulgin. I think my first acquaintance with Winnie was as, well, my sister knew her in high school. So we were at Oasis and she asked me, "Is that Winnie Winkler?" And I said, "Well, Winnie Winkler Robertson." And she said, "She did marry Kenny." They had been in high school together for 1 year. Winnie was 1 year older than my sister. And my sister thought she was it. And I said, "Well, that's Winnie, she still is."
Well, because of our connection in women's ministries, Winnie and I and two other friends, Nancy and Jean, began doing a lot of girl trips together. And our very first one was back in the mid-'80s, where we decided we'd go to New York City together on just a week's trip. And that was the first time that Winnie and I had a lot of one-on-one time together and really got, sort of sealed in our friendship. And it was a week of laughter and adventure and silliness. And one of my fondest memories of Winnie, total, is when we were it was pouring down rain, we were drenched to the absolute core, and she scored tickets to a Broadway play last minute. But we didn't have time to get back to the hotel to pretty up, and we decided to just go for it. We got into the restroom at the theater and used the dryers to get ourselves a little more presentable, and then sat on these last second tickets that she got, like third row from the stage for Les Miserables. And it was not just a treat to experience that with her, but to have the laughter afterwards of how silly we were getting there, and then just that moment of being in that experience was tremendous.
As you know, my son and her son, youngest, became really good friends. And actually I got to know Winnie better and better as that progressed. And then somewhere along the line, I actually got invited to one of the girl deals down in Palm Springs at your parents' place down there with Nancy and Molly and your mom and I. And wow, what a great group of women and what a lot of fun. What I always knew about your mom was that she was up for fun. And yet she could be as passionate about serious things as she was fun with the most fun things. And I absolutely loved that about her.
We laughed so hard on all of the trips and the hikes, and all of us have probably walked thousands of miles if we were to count them up. And we never lack for something to talk about or joke about or pray about. I mean, we have that lofty and lowly side, but it's all been really, really good stuff over the years. And your mom is the heart of that because of her joie de vivre. She loves life, and she loves people, and she lights up every place she is.
I think one of the things I was most impressed with as I got to know Winnie was her passion and love for family. That just connected with my heart, and I'll never forget sitting at Oasis expecting my first grandson, and she was teaching a little seminar on being a Grammy, and I was about to become one. And I had my phone in my lap waiting for the call to the hospital, as a matter of fact, because it was at any moment. And I remember thinking, oh, if I can just be half the Grammy that Winnie is, I will be so happy. She inspired me to be a better mom. And now we did lose our first grandson, and Winnie was such a passionate ear during that time because she understood the love for grandkids. But now we have 5 healthy, wonderful grandkids, and she was my inspiration, and I love it. I think I love it as much as Winnie loves it, but I learned from the best. Her love for her kids, her love for her grandkids, and that has changed me, and she's been my role model in that.
She's very tender-hearted. She is capable of entering with you into whatever circumstance you're going through. She'll come alongside like the best of friend. laughing and crying with you, whatever the circumstance is. I think another thing that I've just always been so impressed with her, when there are stresses in her life, with family or with circumstances, she's able to work through that with a strength and a dignity and no bitterness, and she just seems to have a grasp of a bigger picture that allows her to move through even difficult times with grace.
I also think that one of her greatest gifts is forgiveness and holding people accountable. I think in a friendship that's maybe one of the hardest things to do. And I remember a particular instance in my own life where I needed to have someone speak a word to me, and she did that. And I don't have very many friends who would love me enough to call me up and say, you know, what about this? Is that really what you intended? And let's look at this. And yet she totally loved me. It wasn't about a judgmentalism. It was about holding me accountable to be the kind of person she knew I wanted to be. And I love that about her. And I think one of her greatest strengths is her love for Kenny. I mean, that has shown through everything. I remember one time in Palm Springs, she got off the phone with your dad, and she just giggled, and she says, "Do you girls just get so tingly when you talk to your husband?" And I love that. And at that point, I think they'd been married about 36 years, somewhere between 36 and 40 years, and she was still just so excited to hear from Kenny. And I really admire that, especially today, to see that kind of a strength in marriage and her passion for people.
I would agree with that and add to it that when they've been at odds with each other, which, you know, in any marriage, especially of 50 years, there have been those moments, they each handle it with such respect, and they honor each other even in their stressful moments. I've never heard her say anything about Ken that would demean him, even when she's been frustrated or you know, angry about a circumstance. And usually it's something really silly that she recognizes herself is pretty silly. But she has handled stressful moments with Ken in her marriage with such dignity and such grace, and it just demonstrates that she totally cherishes him and knows that he cherishes her, and it's been good to see.
When Molly was saying that how she's heard Winnie just talk nothing but respectfully about Ken, I see them do that with each other. But one of the things I really love about them is that they argue comfortably also in front of each other and without putting each other down in front of people. And I think that's an art, to be able to be that real and transparent and vulnerable and yet continue to be respectful of each other. Again, it's something I would love to learn. But I admire that tremendously.